Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Thursday, January 23rd, and I can't believe it. We are almost done with our first month of 2025. Boy, that is going fast. We have a lot to do today. I want to tell you, um, are you still waiting for the perfect plan to lead your group and your team in 2025? I hate to break it to you, but it is not coming. And if your perfect plan is coming, it will be outdated by the time you get it. But don't panic. There's a better way. Let's talk about experimenting your way forward that beats perfection every single time. So today, we'll be tackling why perfection is about as useful as, I don't know, a chocolate teapot, and how experimenting can save your leadership bacon, and a simple framework that we can actually use without overthinking it. By the end, you'll have a game plan that doesn't make you want to pull out your hair. Before we dive into all of that, let's get a conversation going. Say hello. Um, where are you from in the comments? Tell me where you're tuning in from. Let's keep this as interactive as possible. This isn't a lecture, it's a conversation. Got questions? Drop them in. Got jokes? Yeah, let me hear that too. Keep them coming. Got complaints? Well, you can take a number for that. What do you think? A little bit about me. For those who do not know me, my name is Jim Saliba, and I am a leadership coach. I am the guy who has spent the last 30 years learning the hard way of what works and what doesn't work in leadership. I've seen some epic fails and some big wins. And my job now is making sure that you can skip some of those painful lessons by learning from mine instead. I did say I'm an author. My book is called the Six Step Leadership Challenge. I don't have it on the desk here. Sorry about that. It's really about putting together a framework of experimenting that moves people forward in a way it hasn't in the past. We used to do these big plans. I remember at CA, we would have every year these strategic plans going together, and then it goes on the shelf, and we do what the hell we ever always did anyway. So this is not about that. Um, so tell me, if you're out there, where are you from? Say hello. Um, all right, enough about me. Let's get into why perfection is holding you back in 2025 and why clinging to it might be the reason you're stuck. So let's face it, perfection is overrated in 2025. It's not just overrated, it's downright dangerous. The pace of change is faster and faster. And if you're waiting for the stars to align before you act, you can be left behind. We're in Q1. I know many, many, many organizations out there are planning their strategy for the year. The problem is this: the world is moving really fast. Hybrid AI is shifting buyers' behaviors. It's really getting chaotic out there. In fact, the other day I was in a store and there were a bunch of magazines. I forget where I was, and one magazine had a title saying that AI is the fastest moving technology, the fastest growing technology in our history. Do you need more information of why the world is moving fast? Waiting for perfection, putting a great plan together is paralysis. Many times I've caught people saying, let's wait until we have all the data. Spoiler alert, you're never going to have all the data. Never. And what you'll do is miss opportunities instead. I did a blog sometime last year talking to my friend Paul, who basically is what I would describe a PE firm for water utilities. They buy private water utilities in places that are growing, and they build the leadership as that hall grows. And I asked him, what are the top three challenges of leadership that you see when you're putting these companies together? And he said, well, there's three things. Well, there's many things, but I had to bring them down to three. But one of the big things was waiting for the data. He says he needs to make decisions with basically only about 60% of the information. The rest is his knowledge, his experience, his intuition, and he just watches it and makes sure it moves in the direction he wants. Now, if it doesn't, he says, oops, fixes it right away and doesn't pivot. That is what we're talking about. We can't wait for perfection. Perfection wastes time. Here's the reality. While you're waiting and busy overthinking and polishing your perfect plan, someone else is experimenting, learning, moving forward, and you are still staring at a Gantt chart. So here's another example. Many years ago, early in my career, I worked for a company called Computer Associates. Um, we had massive planning for software development projects, complete with Gantt charts, critical paths, and more data than you knew what to do with. These 9-month, 12-month projects actually turned into 18 to 24-month projects. And by the end of the project, we would do what we call a post-mortem. Now, um, I know that if you're into PMI, the Project Management Institute, we really talk about why a postmortem is good. A postmortem is useful because we kind of take a look at what worked or what didn't work to make our next project better. And that sounds really good. It sounds real useful, right? The problem is this: when we call it a postmortem, it's because the project died on the table. It's over with. It died. We were supposed to be done in 9 months. It took us 20 months. We're over budget. It scope creep like crazy. It was more than we expected, less. A mess. So what did we do? What did we do? We would tighten things down even more and more and more for next time because we need more control of what's going on. But instead, it just made it even worse, and it strangled things to death, took even longer. So faster feedback loops is what we need to do. The lesson here is perfection isn't the answer, progress is. Leaders who thrive in 2025 will be the ones who stop waiting for the perfect plan and start taking action. But not any action. It needs to be intentional, strategic, and experimentation. So let me hear from you. Tell me about one leadership challenge where perfection is holding you back. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Or tell me about the last time you heard someone say, well, let's try this first. Let's try this first. Have you said that? Have you ever said that? Tell me. Let's talk about that. In the meantime, let's continue. Let's say experimentation isn't a buzzword. It is your superpower. Experimentation isn't a buzzword, it's your superpower. It's how you turn uncertainty into opportunity. And honestly, it's going to be the only way to keep up with 2025's chaos and beyond. Here are some key points. Experimentation builds resilience. When you test, learn, adapt, you're building an organization that thrives with change instead of crumbling under the pressure. It's faster than perfection. Let's get real. Experiments is how you got answers faster than a 90 slide PowerPoint deck ever will. Come on. It creates buy in. When your team is part of an experiment, they're not just executing, they're engaged, they're invested, they're energized. But you need to experiment correctly. Here's a story. I worked on a project a number of years back before, I guess, before the COVID years or around the COVID years. Um, I can't tell you the name of the company and the project because of NDAs, but we wanted to break into a new market and we were targeting younger consumers. We tested everything while this was going out. We tested the design, the user interface, the shape, the colors, how things look to get people more engaged. What were they liking about this? The one thing that wasn't tested is, would you actually pay for this? And it turns out they wouldn't. After spending, I don't know, 25, $30 million, we had a great product that nobody wanted to buy. Why? Because we didn't test the full hypothesis. Lesson learned, you have to experiment on the right things. Experiment isn't random, it's strategic. And it's faster, smarter, and more effective than chasing perfection. So, what's one small experiment you could do this week? Drop your ideas in the comments, and I would love to hear them. So, now let's get practical. How do you experiment like a pro? Let me tell you. First, experimentation is part of my leadership toolkit. When you buy my book or come to my retreat or one of my offerings, we're going to talk about experimenting, and we're not just winging it with wishful thinking. Every time I hear someone say, we're hoping that this will do that, that isn't an experiment. Every time I hear that, it reminds me of a scene of Grumpier Old Men, where he says, you can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see which gets filled up first. When we're hoping and we say, let's try this without putting some constraints, some controls around it, you're just wishing. So let's start with what is an experiment. An experiment starts with a hypothesis. What's the problem you're trying to solve? And a guess, your best guess for solving it. Be specific. So really, an experiment is I believe that if I do X, I'm going to get Y, right? I believe that if I put out a product for young people, they'll be more engaged and I'll grow my market space and more money. Okay, now think small. I know I always say think big, but think small. Don't bet the farm on this. What is the smallest, cheapest, fastest way you could think of that will test this hypothesis? And it can't be, let's build a whole product. It I try to get people to fit their experiments in 1 month or less. If it's bigger than a month, your hypothesis is either too big, your project is too big for the hypothesis. You must think smaller. Okay, what's next? Clear parameters. We want to have clear parameters of what success looks like. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So if I'm saying I want to grow into a younger marketplace, what is going to be my experiment? My hypothesis is that if I build a product for them, they will enjoy it and they will pay money for it. So, do I build a product? We used to talk about often what we called paper product. We kind of build something on paper that we could flip and we could talk to people about it and say, blah, blah, blah. Do you like this? Would you pay for it? Would it be interesting? That is one way. But what does success look like? You have to answer the question, will somebody pay for this? Okay. What's also good about experiments is it's easier to get buy-in from your team. Your team will make or break that experiment. Get them in early, why you want to experiment, and it will get better results. So the whole idea is by having these short, very quick experiments is that we have iterations very quickly. The goal isn't perfection, the goal is progress. Learn, pivot, repeat. Learn, pivot, repeat, right? It's progress. Keep moving forward. The goal, the ultimate goal at the end doesn't change, but how we get there is simple and small, and we're moving there step by step. So, if you're out there, have you any real world experiments out there that illustrate part of this framework? What's stopping you from experimenting right now? Often it's fear. Let's talk about it. You could drop it into the chat and we'll see what we need to do from there. Okay, so we've been talking about experimenting. And in my book, it's really about experimenting a lot. And I build 6 steps around that. First 2 steps is about understanding your world, how you fit in it, how you are engaging it. The third step is about taking that story, your vision, your story, and into a piece of what I call lean into your story. And by leaning into your story, you're taking your ultimate vision, breaking it down into pieces, and you will then build a strategy, which is basically GPS waypoints that get you to that vision. The second part is about empowering that vision, getting teams to experiment and try things out and move it forward. The third thing is about amplifying your story. How is the culture of your organization, your department, your specific team? Does it move and teach and go along with experimenting, or is it resisting against it? What are your processes and systems? Often we put them together 5 years ago and they really were fine 5 years ago and they were in for a reason, but they're not serving us well. So we need to change those. And the last thing we talk about during experimentation or types of experiments will be durability for your story. And this is about you, your executive presence. How do you come across? How do you show up every day? And by the time we put that together, we call that your brand, right? What is your brand? And we still have to balance that with the rest of your life. People who are leading and crushing at work, but have a personal life that's in shambles and ready to get divorced, isn't winning it. So we need to put this all together. And these are four layered experiments that I talk about putting together in my book: vision and strategy, execution through learning, empowering your people and culture, and having durability for your story. We will be talking about this in my retreat I mentioned earlier in this broadcast. I have a retreat in April, Napa. If you're interested in it, let me know. Send me a direct message and I'll tell you all about it. It's only for 12 people, and that's it. I want it small, intimate, impactful. It's going to be a fantastic, fantastic retreat. If you would like to chat with me about what you're doing at your organization, what experiments would be great for you, here is a link that you can go to and book some time with me. jamessaliba.com/meetings pound virtual coffee. This is not to sell you on any of my things, any of my programs, but just talk to me about what you have going on. I'll give you my opinion, and hopefully it will help you do much better. If you have any questions, definitely drop them into the chat. And that's about it for today. Unless you have any questions for me, I will see you in our next stream. You have a great, great day.